Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Hamp on the not on, but from the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube, back with another episode of the Enough to Keep Going Weekly Games Podcast. This is episode number 273. It's a numbers episode, so lots of sales information, earnings data, and the necessary wailing and gnashing of teeth that goes along with such. Plus, we're going to talk a little bit tonight about continuing experiences in Marvel Snap, as well as a brief rundown on a relatively new game, Knights of Honor 2 Sovereign, a kind of sort of 4X game. I think that'll be the interesting part of the discussion, is just trying to figure out exactly what box this game fits in. I'm making assumptions, by the way, that my mic is live and that you can actually hear what I'm saying. I know these guys can. My controls are separate, though, for Discord and OBS. So I'm just going on blind faith and dispensing with the mic checks I used to do with the one ear cup when we start the show, and just going on blind faith, assuming it's all right. Tonight with me, as I have the vast majority of the time that I'm on the show, I have Mr. DBQ Hams. How you doing, DBQ?
I'm doing well. I think it's been a while since we talked about some NPD and some sales numbers. So nice to talk about that tonight, along with, I don't know that I've heard of Knights of Honor 2, so I'll be looking forward to hearing about it.
Very cool. Yes, it has been, most of our recent shows have been kind of in Towmaster's wheelhouse, being the resident E2KG legal correspondent, as we have been talking a healthy amount about mergers and acquisitions. Speaking of Mr. Towmaster, he is here as well. How are you doing, Tow?
Doing well, thank you. Time to flip it up. Go back to financials this week.
All right, without much further ado, let's get to it. Starting with segment one, our main gamer experience stories. As I mentioned, we're going to start off the top of the hour talking a little bit about Knights of Honor 2. I was a bit in a bit of a scramble as the show started. I had to let pre-roll go on a little bit longer than usual because the setup over here is different. So I was struggling to get a hold of my keyboard for the health and monitoring PC, but also I also meant to have the agenda up, which I also didn't have up, and I also meant to have this some facts pages on Knights of Honor 2. So I didn't have time I meant to look back at the origin story of Knights of Honor 1, but this is by a team of developers known as Black Sea Games, published by one of my favorite publishers, THQ Nordic. This is a 4X game. If I went to describe this game, it would wind up sounding like I was describing Crusader Kings 3, or any other Paradox game, is what it would sound like. It is a grand strategy game, but it runs in real time, so it's not turn-based. So it is very, very, very similar to Crusader Kings 3. There are some slight design differences here that I think, though, are pertinent. And the main one of which, I guess maybe two main ones, there's no tutorial, as far as I can tell. So you start the game, I pull up the campaign screen, and I'm like, where's the tutorial? I have to be missing it. Certainly there's a tutorial. There does not appear to be. It's Conquer the World, which is also my personal favorite, as you've heard me mention on the show many times before. I kind of can't stand the scenarios, and Civilization does that, and Crusader Kings does that as well. RTSs do that. They have these canned scenarios where, they try and put a story around it, and, it's the story of one particular sovereign ruler or whatever, and I'm like, I don't need that. Just give me Conquer the World. And so it does exactly that. You can pick from, I think, 3 different eras, maybe 2, that are bounded by different years. One of the other things that's really different is the scale. It seems to have the same number of nations that Crusader Kings 3 does, where almost the entire world is populated. And actually, the end result of that is there's actually more kingdoms than we have in the modern day world, because there hadn't been a lot of unification. So there are kingdoms spread all over the map. Germany is not a unified country. It's all broken down into, several nation states. Ireland is not a single holistic, nation. England is not a nation. And I put it on random, and for my first scenario, I wound up with England. So I've got the Scottish to the north, who are currently independent. There are... I guess they're like a branch of the Scottish off to my east that are in two separate kind of nation states or whatever on their own. I've got the Irish across the pond who are now fighting. I had one of them reach out to me and ask if I would ally with them in order to go to war against another nation state, the Leinsters, I think was the name of them, or Leicesters, I'm not sure which. And I had a trade agreement with that country, so, I had 3 knights recruited. So one of the conventions of the game is you get a number of knights to recruit to be your court, right? To be your kind of set of nobles. And even though they're knights, they're not knights in kind of the traditional sense that we might think about where, they're, leading your militia. They are of different types. So they can be spies, they can be diplomats, then they can be marshals, which are kind of the more common knight that we would think of. And so I have currently 2 spies and a diplomat and 1 marshal. And I just recruited the marshal, who's now raising an army. The spies so the knights have their various skills and their various kind of classes, basically, and you can kind of send them off to do things based on that. So my first spy I actually sent to Serbia to infiltrate the Serbian kingdom. And the second spy, I had them set up as a governor, I think of Nottingham, maybe, or maybe London. And then my diplomat, I had set up, I don't think he's the governor yet. Yeah, when I started this war got into this war with this Irish nation state, the Germans got pissed off because the Germans have blood ties to the Irish. And so I actually sent my diplomat off to Ulster to try and like better engender ourselves to their court and try and kind of smooth out diplomatic wrinkles with them. So that's kind of the level of complexity. The UI is incredibly complex. I don't want to say that it's complicated, other than the fact that there's no tutorial. So, but you do get tutorial tips. So when you bring up the game, you're kind of flooded with a bunch of tool tips or whatever as you kind of go around the screen. But one thing that's just really different is, whereas Crusader Kings 3 and all of these other games would definitely hold your hand and say, hey, you need to put a building here. You need to hire a knight here. You need to do this. You need to do that. There's not really that much of a heavy-handed kind of directorial kind of banter from your one advisor that you have. And typically, once you've touched those controls 2 or 3 times, they stop squawking at you. You can always, though, make some of those pop-up screens kind of permanent by right-clicking the mouse. So you kind of always have an advisory of like, oh yeah, where's this control? What's that control? Without the tutorial, I will say the toughest thing I've had kind of squelching down on how exactly I want to approach this game is figuring out exactly what is my do loop, per turn. The turn has to kind of be a virtual time box in your head because the clock is always running. You can, of course, pause it. So you can pause it, make decisions, put some things in motion, and then click it into run again. There's kind of some idle time, and maybe that may not be particularly appealing to people because when you make decisions and then put the clock in run, if you don't leave the clock running while you're making those decisions, you kind of just sit there and wait for things to unfold and wait for your alerts to pop. But right now, it's a pretty thoroughly enjoyable game. I realize probably all this time, probably people think that I'm playing this on PC. I'm actually not. It's a Steam game, but because I built a Linux box to run Steam on... most of the time using Proton, but also to run some Steam Linux native games. I'm actually playing on Linux. And this is a game that although it is certified for play on the Steam Deck with, some minor problems, it actually didn't run the first time that I, double click executed it. I actually had to, There's some boards over on ProtonDB that will tell you, hey, this game you need to disable this overlay, or it's never going to launch, it's going to crash, and that's what I was running into. So fortunately, I just happened to Google over there because I didn't know about that, all those message boards on ProtonDB. So point is, there's a ton of kind of community support for these games if you want to run games on Linux. And an interesting aside that I'll mention is, in this day where there are lots of complaints and concerns about GPU prices and PC component prices and yada, 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 one way that you can make an approach to PC gaming in a less expensive manner is to build a Linux box. And if you build a Linux box and use a Radeon GPU, which normally I would never in 1,000 years after my experience tell you to do that on PC, it is definitely actually a preferred option on Linux, because NVIDIA does not make, as far as I know, I don't think NVIDIA makes doesn't make Linux drivers for their NVIDIA cards, but their Radeon drivers are actually open source because they open source those. They're not proprietary and licensed drivers, so there's lots of Radeon driver support on Linux. So yeah, I think that's pretty much the tale of the tape.
So if there's no tutorial, how's the learning curve in terms of how to choose which knight to be a governor, which one to send out? When you found out about the blood ties with Germany, is that a pop-up that just comes up and does it walk you through how to respond, or you kind of stumble your way?
It's very much a lot of self-discovery. I mean, they do kind of walk you around the UI kind of initially when you start the game. There's kind of three main areas of kind of the UI, and they do talk you through that. But there's a fourth area over in the lower right-hand corner that toggles your map overlays, which tells you a lot of information. There's no tutorial that talks you through that. And it doesn't, and when it tells you, like, these are the things that you can do, it doesn't say, do this now. Right, I think maybe with one or two occasions, maybe it tells you to hire your first knight or something like that. There's a resource, like wood is apparently a resource. I have no idea where the wood resource total is. It's not in the upper right hand corner, right on the top of the overlay. So so no one. So there was nothing that told me. So first of all, that Irish province, right, that came to me and asked me to be their ally as they went to war with another Irish province that I had a trade agreement with. There was nothing. So when that happened, two little icons popped up on all of my knights. There's nothing that told me what those icons were. When I went up, I noticed it. And when I went up there, what it was that they were giving me their input on whether they recommended approving or declining the offer. And so initially, I had 3 knights hired at the time. 2 of them said, I'd recommend you don't do this. And a third one did, the diplomat. When I initially declined it, the Irish came back and said, you know what? If you do this, we will also sign a non-aggression pact with you, which seems a fairly obvious thing, right? However, it was enough to sway my knights and make the vote 2-3 the other way. So I said, I'm just going to go ahead and follow whatever the knights recommend. And so I agreed to go to war with them. So no, there's, nobody said, there was a tip that said, hey, it does give you a tip that says what the best thing to do with your knight is. So when you hire a knight and you say, make that knight a spy, it does say, hey, the best use of this knight would be to send them off to infiltrate somewhere. But there's lots of other things that knight can do. The knight can govern. The knight can upskill, right, in a given area. They don't talk you through a skill tree or, what the best type of skills is that a spy should invest in. I mean, so there's a very, very small modicum of hand-holding, but it's really not much at all. Nobody told me to go to Serbia.
So this game came out early December. How did it end up on your radar?
It wound up on my radar because I wanted to play Victoria 3, which is a Paradox game and has been reviewing pretty well. But when I went to Steam, the difference now on Steam is I bounce review scores against what the Steam community is saying, and all the reviews on Steam for Victoria 3 were very mixed. There were lots of complaints about the approach. I think there's some things in the business model of it, but I think there's also some instability in that game, and that's a key thing that just after being burned by, getting, that NBA 2K 18 or 19 that was just horribly broken, I was like, I need good review scores, and I need concurrence from the Steam community. So when I went there and Victoria 3 wound up being something that I didn't want to play, I said, well, let me look at all the strategy games that are new releases. And then as I went down the list, I came across this one.
Nice. Cool. Definitely plenty of depth and layers there. Interesting.
Yeah, it's, like I said, I didn't want to call the UI complicated or the game complicated, but it is complex. There's a lot to do. You put buildings, I have 9 provinces now. You can build buildings. All the buildings have upgrades. You can improve the fortifications. Just as I talk about with a lot of games, just your approach to what are you going to do? How are you going to conquer the world? Because to become emperor of the world, you have to have the concurrence. You have to be a great nation, and you have to have the concurrence of the other great nation leaders. So it'll be interesting.
Is it strictly single player, or is there a multiplayer component in there, like a turn-based asynchronous type of thing? Or
I think it is.
There's online PvP and co-op.
Oh, there is. Okay, yeah.
At least I'm looking on the Steam page. Yeah, I was just looking at that right before you asked that question. So
I have no idea how to get to that because there's no
But I don't
tutorial,
know, yeah.
and they don't tell you how to. I mean, I assume it's in the main menu somewhere, but yeah. But I mean, there was nothing in game that said anything about like you can team up with a partner, you can make your game private, you can call a partner in for to play 2 of you against the computer or whatever, which would be super interesting. But yeah.
So on here it says no turns needed, but you said there was turns, right, of some kind. You take turns.
No, the way it works in game is you could pause the clock. So.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's not really. The AI is constantly like thinking and making moves, so to speak, and you'll see alerts for like trade agreements are made or non-aggression pact is signed or a defensive pact is signed or something, or somebody's married off. You do have family in this game that you have to manage. You can actually, you're not, your hands aren't tied on who you have to declare as an heir. So you can actually declare anyone as an heir. I don't think it has to be like male. It definitely doesn't have to be firstborn. So all the children have skills as well as the leaders. So you can, my son just hit the age where I was able to pick, what I wanted their skill sets to be. So I made the kid like nautical. So he's like going to be the, first admiral of the family, so to speak, right? When you look at England and you see like lots of the royal family who are actually naval officers at a different point. So, it's I think there's a ton of depth there, and like I said, it's conquer the world, and with literally hundreds of nations all over the world. The one thing, the main key thing I probably wanted to get across before we jump off is I mentioned that like the scale and the scope feels different than Crusader Kings 3. In Crusader Kings 3, and probably the vast majority of 4X games and games in this genre, you can zoom out and see the entire right world map. I don't know how you do that in this game. It seems and appears like you can't. Again, there's no tutorial. But the point of it is that while I, the player, am aware that there's a huge world and there's tons of nation states, and you kind of are as the gamer too, the scope of the map view kind of confines you to be hyper-focused on regionality. I sent a spy off to go check in on Serbia, but I wasn't constantly looking over in the part of the world, right, in the map where Serbia is. I was like, I would get his reports, and I was like, sounds like he's busy. Let me focus on what's going on over here, because that's all you can see, and because to scroll, somewhere else, to me, is a little bit of a pain. I think you could just double-click on an area of the map in the world map view to get over there, but again, I feel like the scale of the map kind of forces you, or incentivizes you to kind of stay local and pay attention to what's going on in your local area, as you would think was the primary concern of rulers, right, at the time. I can't even zoom my map out enough to see the entirety of my own territory, right, all in one view. Now it'll be interesting to see if that changes as the game goes on and the size of your kingdom increases. But that was a very slight nuance that I felt like, that seems like a very small change, but it actually like is having a tangible difference in how I'm approaching and playing the game. So and by the way, this game, I think I bought it on sale, but right now it's $45 on Steam. So Tao, you have been playing a goodie but an oldie, or an oldie but a goodie. I'm not sure exactly which order that one goes in, but why don't you talk to us a little bit about, in some ways, a kind of similar game in that you were building worlds while I am trying to conquer one.
Yes, from one large world to another. So I jumped back into Minecraft this past week, and for a few reasons I brought this up in the main GX stories. One, I haven't really played all that much this week, other than a couple other ones that I'll get to later on. But for this one, I actually jumped back on. Well, I played on PC, which I haven't. Oh man, I haven't played PC in a really long time. Even on my older PC, I think that was the last time I had. I think on my old laptop, and I only played a little bit. I was kind of like the controller a little bit better, just for like when you're building stuff, you can do a little bit more finer movements with the sticks than with like a keyboard. So obviously you have the mouse where you actually place something, but the actual movements, like when you're moving around, I thought the controller was a little bit better. But I wanted to jump on here because I was actually playing on a modded world that someone from a Discord server that I'm on had created, which I've never done either. I've played multiplayer with like my son before, like on Xbox or Switch or whatever, but I've never played like on another person's like dedicated world. So this is up pretty much 24/7. I think it goes down like maybe once a day, just like he reboots his PC or whatever, or she reboots his PC. I'm not sure if it's man or woman. And so I wanted to jump in there, and like the mods they're like super like extravagant. It's not like real time graphics or anything like that. It's just kind of simple things like you can have backpacks on, so that gives you a little bit more inventory space. There are some waystones which let you teleport, kind of depending between the different waystones. I think there is a biome one, so it gives you a little bit more variety on the environments you can kind of come upon them, which is kind of cool. Like there's kind of ones where it's like almost like a fall type of like area where everything, all the trees are like the brownish red leaves and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool that you get that diversity. Kind of there's one of those, a lot of ice world. I don't know if there's a lot of ice in the normal. I don't remember the normal game. It's just pretty much all ice and snow, so that's kind of cool. But I've seen a lot of that environment, which is kind of weird. For an infinite, and I put in quotes because it's technically not infinite, but a world. But it kind of seems like it for the most part. But I've seen that one type of environment, and I think there might be like a couple extra mobs or animals that they put in there, but nothing kind of crazy. I don't have like infinite inventory or like the storage chests aren't like if I put one down, I can just if I put one down in one place, put a bunch of stuff in there. If I go somewhere else, I can just pick all my stuff up. There's nothing like that. So it's just kind of simple mods that they put on there. Kind of quality of life things, I think, for the most part, other than the biomes things. But so I've been doing that. I actually did that quite a few days this past week, and I've had a lot of fun. And it's not like we're going on there and we're going to build like a huge city or anything. It's just kind of people jump on, jump off. We're kind of just playing our own pace, and we can just do whatever we want. So it's kind of nice that we can do that. Like I know a lot of servers out there, they'll want to focus in on something, and you have to build a big structure or dig to the bottom of the world like for like miles or something like that. But this is just kind of chill. Like, hey, do what you want, which is perfect because we're busy. I'm busy, so just get in there when we can and kind of do that. I did have that's one thing now. Playing on PC, and this is always kind of comes about, I guess. But I did have some issues going, initially trying to get on there because I didn't have the right version for this mod or that mod, so I had to fool around with that, and that took me like almost an hour before I find it in total within a few days, among through a few days to finally get it, that way I actually can jump in there. But I finally got it going, so I was like, okay, cool. But no, I've been having a lot of fun with that. And one thing I like about the PC mods too, or the PC in general, You can just throw in whatever skin you want. Like you could kind of do that with the console versions. The Bedrock version is what they call it. The console versions, although I think it's on Windows too. So I'm playing the Java version, the original, what they coded in Java. But you can just go onto like any website that has skins and throw it on there. So it's kind of cool. And I got a bunch of like comic books and video games, Mario, Halo, Master Chief, and Superman, the Hulk, and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool that I can just throw whatever I want on, and just, not just Steve or Alex, and the default skins. So it's kind of nice. But yeah, but other than that, I've just been kind of. I always do the same thing when we're playing survival. So that's another thing too. Like I can't do creative because I'm not like a master builder or anything like that. I can't do pixel art or can't do these big mansions or whatever. I'm good with like a little square or rectangle house, and that's about it. So I just go through and do that. Excuse me. So I do what I normally do. I just start the world, and I'm looking for a village, and then I'm gonna I don't want to say take over the village, but I just kind of build my own kind of basic base there, and then kind of just explore around and just do more of that. So I just keep doing that, and every once in a while, maybe I think the few times that I got on this week, there's maybe 2 other people on at the same time. I think there's like 5 or 6, maybe 7 now. I think there's someone else that just joined. That's total that goes on the server, but I've only not ever seen like more than 2 people. So, but it'd be kind of nice to kind of get together at some point and just kind of maybe explore or something like that. So we'll see what happens. Oh, another nice thing, another nice mod they have is when you die, it actually puts like a gravestone where you died, so you can kind of just go back. You break that up and then you get all your stuff back. So that's kind of nice. You don't lose all your stuff. Although it did not work one time. I think I died like 3 times. The first time I just didn't know about that. Like I thought I just lost all my stuff. Because when I went back to the spot, like I didn't see. They usually just kind of scatters all around when you die in like the vanilla Minecraft settings. And I just didn't notice it, and so then I was talking with one of the people on there, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you just got gravestone." But I died again. Saw that. Okay, I got my stuff back. Then I died again, like a few minutes later, and I didn't see this gravestone. So it might have just been a glitch. Mods, that's going to happen. So it's not a big deal. But I didn't have too much at that point, but I was still kind of upset. The first time, though, when I died, I did have a lot. I was like, ah. So that's kind of that old, Minecraft thing. If you don't go back to your base, if you get kind of greedy and you just kind of keep exploring, you're going to lose stuff if you die. And that's what happened to me because I was in a cave. So it happens. But yep, that's pretty much it. That's why I've gone back to Minecraft now this past week.
DBQ, any comments or questions?
It's Minecraft. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I mean, right? Like, if a game's got legs, there's so many different ways to take that. So,
yeah, and this is something that I always come back to at least a couple times a year, or at least once or twice a year. And I've come. Well, that was the other thing because I've come to this point where I finished Pokemon. I take a little break from that. I did play a little bit of that after last week's episode, but then I was just like, I got to take a break because it's been like since it came out. That's all I had been playing, like Marvel Snap and stuff. But and I was like, all right, I just got to take a break, and that always seems to kind of be my game, Minecraft. It was just kind of go back and just kind of like cleanse my palate, just kind of just chill out for a little bit in Minecraft, and I'm good to go. I'll jump into something else hopefully soon, new.
All right, DBQ, you asked a couple of weeks ago if either of us had played this game. And since our answer was no, it appears that you decided to jump in and take the assignment on yourself. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about your relatively new game, which you've been playing?
So just like you, I picked up a game. Well, I shouldn't say I picked it up. So I got another offer for GameFly, month for $1. So 2 of my games on here are definitely GameFly games, but I can't stop thinking about this game. It is, I don't know if it's good, but it has its hooks in me. And that's Marvel's Midnight Suns. So unlike Knights of Honor 2 Sovereign, that has no tutorials, Marvel's Midnight Suns has a lot of tutorials and a lot of systems. There's crafting. There is upgrades. There are costumes with perks. There's armor. There are cards in the card battling. And if you get duplicate cards, you can dust them, combine them to make them more powerful. You have a light and a dark Paragon Renegade system to some degree. You have friendship ranks with all your different Marvel superheroes and characters. there are layers and layers of non-combat going on within this game, let alone the combat, which is actually a whole lot of fun. I mean, it is turn-based. It is so it's turn-based, and if anybody's followed this, right, that it's not quite XCOM because you don't have the dice rolls in terms of percentages of hits. You're playing your attacks or moves or skills are all card based, and so you have a number of action points and cards that you can play each turn. And some of those cards will be attacks. Some of those will create a knockback into either other enemies or into environmental hazards. Some of them will be buffs or life, health, regen, or steal. And I say all this, and I'm 3 hours in, maybe a little bit more. And of those 3 hours, I'm 4 battles in. A lot of time in between. It is, if you enjoyed moving around the Normandy and talking to people, if you enjoy the kind of social link aspects of Persona or Fire Emblem, there's a lot to like here. If you also enjoy Marvel characters.
Well, that was the question I wanted to ask. So did you play Fire Emblem Three Houses?
Yeah, actually, I came back to it this week in prep for Fire Emblem Awakening. Engage. Yeah.
As you went through that description here in the first part, that is definitely what I got vibes of, was Three Houses. Am I spot on with that? Or? Oh,
yeah, I think you're very spot on with that, because you are, while Three Houses was pretty much your Hogwarts Academy, this is you are at an abbey with you have the Midnight Suns characters, you have some of the Avengers, you get more characters as they come through. You have a significantly large grounds to explore. Throughout the grounds, there's tarot cards hidden around, which is actually I spent a lot of time looking for tarot cards, because each tarot card is a different Marvel character, right? So that there's a Cloak and Dagger, or Nova, or Namor, So there's crafting pieces. You're picking up crafting materials as you learn more arcane arts. You can open up other areas on the grounds. So yes, has a lot of that within the Fire Emblem part, except for the romance. Like you can have a bromance. You can be buds and go to a meaningful social hangout, but your player created character does not romance anybody in the kind of Fire Emblem sense, which is actually, from looking at what it sounds like with Engage, is pretty similar. There's not romances there's character links, and what those character links do in Midnight Sun, similar to what sounds like they do in Engage based on the previews, is that they give you more abilities as you head into more combo pieces as you head into a battle as well.
What this sounds like, I starkly remember, because it was one of the things that got me, kept me in the comics. I remember all those issues when you were at Avengers Mansion, right? Or on the West Coast Avengers compound, or in Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters. And while the superhero battles were great, like, it was equally fun to see the character progression and the interaction, right, in those pages where they were going around those grounds. It sounds like that's kind of the feeling they've tried to replicate in what you're talking about.
Yeah, it definitely feels like that. Like, you're in it for the characters, right? I mean, the combat is fun and strategic, at least early on. It's, I've had to heal. I've died a couple times. Well, I've had a character go down. I've had to revive them, playing on normal mode. But yeah, in terms of the interactions with all the characters, there is a lot of that. What kind of social life interactions, kind of the in-between times that you end up doing. It's not quite the CW of a Marvel game, right? Like, there's not quite that level of inner turmoil and drama, at least yet. But it definitely leans in and wants you to enjoy those character interactions just as much as you are coming to it for the battles.
So talk to me a little bit about, you're playing this on PlayStation 5. As I mentioned, when you asked me about this game, I feel like the optimal experience for this is on PC. You had the option to play on PC. Why did you go for, was it because of the GameFly offer, or?
Somewhat definitely about the GameFly offer. It also, I kind of wanted to, based on PlayStation 5 and 4K versus my PC, I wanted to see what that looked like, because as of now, it's only released on PC, Series X, Series, and PlayStation 5. It has not released on previous gen consoles. It's still, in theory, there's still ports announced. They do not have a hard and fast release date. And even on PlayStation 5, this it looks like, I would say it looks like early mid Xbox One, PlayStation 4 models. Like, it is not, I mean, the Abbey grounds look nice, but there are no graphical settings. Gamma is my only graphical setting. There's nothing else. There are characters in the cutscenes that have artifacting and flickering within their eye, like it's missing frames of animation. This is a month out at this point from release, so it either, to some degree, I don't know where that prioritization comes. Like, it's a cutscene. How much of that are they going to come back and patch in, and how much of it is their development time spending on the promised 4 other characters and additional maps and the DLC season pass that they have? So, I think that piece was really the surprising part of it. Like, I thought that this would have had the potential to really be a nice graphical, but at the same time, XCOM never really was, right? It was functional for what it is, but it is not, you're not going there for the high-end character models of these Marvel characters.
Yeah, you don't buy XCOM to show off the power of your fancy new GPU on PC. One thing I wanted to ask is, so with no graphical settings, that also means there's no in-game option between performance or quality mode. What do you have it set at outside at the system menu?
Set it. I've got it at the system level, running HDR. My screen, my TV doesn't go above. Well, it does 60. So I think that's what it's trying to do. I couldn't tell you if it's getting there and hitting it steady.
Yeah, if yours only goes up to 60, then you weren't given the I don't think you're given the option on the game
at the system level to
go to 120. So yeah, very cool. You were gonna. There was one other comment you had.
No, I think the only other comment is, like, as I'm kind of like about like the overall production value of it. Maybe I'm still in the honeymoon period of it, but it has got its hooks into me. Like, I enjoy the combat. It's thoughtful in terms of the strategic pieces, and it's also a kind of, it's my end of the night game. It's not super intense. I can kind of, lean back in the chair. I'm not white knuckling it to try to make it through anything, or leaning forward at a computer screen. It's a relaxing kind of go hang out with some Marvel characters.
When you find those tarot cards around, is that how you unlock additional characters in the game, or how do you unlock additional characters?
The additional characters come through the story. Like, through story progression, you bring in Spider-Man, you bring in Captain America, you bring in a variety of your other characters. The tarot cards are characters who are not in the game. If you looking online, if I collect all 22 of them around the grounds, I unlock an armor set, basically, with perks. So
So before I ask Tal if he has any questions, I do want to mention, because there are a few people watching. I should say people should, and not saying that your commentary has anything to do with it, but I mean, people should recognize that we are all comic book fans, and so there is a tendency for us to definitely have a little more lift for games that are of that genre and delve deeply into that culture. And this game, from what I've seen, definitely does that with the comic book kind of covers in the game, and other things, as I mentioned, right, that harken back to, right, things that we saw and parts of stories that we experienced as kids. So
yeah, if you don't have any affinity for the Marvel universe in the comic sense, these are tangential, even more so than the Crystal Dynamics Marvel Avengers to the MCU, right? If you don't have that kind of connection point, I don't know that this resonates. Like I told Tao in the chat over the week, like during the combat, I really wish there was a skip animation button. Like I like the strategy. I just want to keep going. It's like, in some ways, the graphical flourishes of the Iron Man shooting out his blasts, or Carol Danvers flying in, looks nice, but after you've seen it once or twice, it does kind of drag the pace of the combat down.
one more question before I kick it to Tao. Is there a cannonball special in the game?
Cannonball is in the character with Havoc?
No, with Wolverine. Are you able to pull off
cannonball and
like a combo?
Yeah, no, now I get what you're saying. I do not know, because I have not got to the point of unlocking Wolverine yet. And so don't know.
Okay, gotcha. I apologize for monopolizing a lot of the time, Tao. I had a lot of questions because I was on the verge of pulling the trigger and getting this game, but I went for Knights of Honor 2 instead. So, Tao, any questions or comments?
Yes. So as far as the card system, how does the card system work? Is that more like Back 4 Blood, where you kind of like pick your cards and they kind of buff you, or do whatever, some kind of
your card system ends up being your move set. So I've got cards. It plays out similar to what you've played, like in the developers talked about how Slay the Spire inspired some of this, where it is, I'll draw 5 cards for the turn. There'll be a variety. I'll have a deck for each character, and so that it'll pull from all of those decks and populate my hand, and then those can be, it could be an attack, it could be so that is the attack piece. Like I'm choosing the card based on the action and the number of skill points that I have available, or action points I have available, and then choosing who to target, or the environment and the direction in order to impact the battlefield.
Yeah, I mean, I've been looking at this game for a while now, and when you're talking about it, I mean, it hits a lot of what I like, kind of exploration of the the grounds of the hub area. Not so much the finding things, I guess. I don't mind that. You got crafting, you got the card system, which I kind of like. I kind of like that in Back 4 Blood, and obviously it's different here, but just that kind of system, and obviously Marvel Snap. And Marvel. Speaking of Marvel Snap brought me into kind of those card battle games, and I was wondering if this would bring me into turn-based games, because I've tried like so many times throughout the years to find a turn-based game that I like, and I've never done it. I just can't.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, especially for the amount of time that you've played Snap, that Snap is a gateway drug to a variety of other card-based games. I could, and your affinity for Marvel characters, I could definitely see you enjoying this. I would say, given the fact that it's been out for a month and it's already 33% off, I would sit on your hands a little bit longer and wait. Like, there's a lot of fun to be had. I certainly don't know that it is a $70 next gen game. All that said, I want to support the devs. Like, I like Firaxis. I want to see them do something more in this area. But yeah, it's a hard sell at a full price game.
So So one thing I want to ask, is it really a card-based game? So Hands of Fate 2 is a card-based game. I mean, that is the core, like, game mechanic when you're in combat.
I would say, card-based, it is a stand-in for action items in a menu, right? Like, it adds a little bit of randomness because you're not, like, if this was a JRPG and you had, like, fight and I could cast a spell or choose what action or those pieces, it is similar to that in terms of I am selecting actions, but there's a little bit of the random. It's very light in terms of that card based, like there's card based mechanics, but it is not fully kind of immersing itself in that. It's not, what is that, the Gwent single player game where you're basically moving around a map and playing Gwent within a battlefield. It is not that type.
Tao, anything else?
No, that was it. Yep.
All right. Well, that's segment one. Let's tally on over to the news. First story in the rundown: Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 is now officially the U.S.'s biggest selling game of 2022. The story by Vicky Blake over on Eurogamer. And I just want to say, thank you so much to Eurogamer. You guys are doing the Lord's work. This article coming up on a Sunday when everybody else is like, I've noticed, I'm all happy for work-life balance, but I've noticed, a lot of our, kind of usual suspects of news media outlets are kind of definitely running Monday through Friday, right? And when Friday's done, I don't see new articles get posted. I used to see all of the kind of puff pieces, and I will call them articles of dubious value, that I would see go up on Saturday. But there's less of that, so hats off to Eurogamer. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, and I'm quoting, may not have released until the end of October, but it's now officially the biggest selling game of 2022 in the U.S. Whilst we already knew it was selling by the bucket load, NPD has now released December's top-selling chart, confirming that Modern Warfare 2 managed to hold on to pole position and finishes the year as the U.S.'s best-selling game. Now, that is not anything different than is the normal byline, right, every year. But Call of Duty has been smashing its own records of the franchise. It is not only the fastest-selling game this year, but of the franchise's history, selling $1 billion, doing $1 billion in sales in 10 days. Other games that were up high in the chart, God of War. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say Elden Ring, number 2, Madden 3, God of War Ragnarok 4, Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga is 5, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is 6, FIFA 7, Pokemon Legends Arceus is 8, Horizon Forbidden West is 9, and MLB The Show is number 10.
So the caveats in that, digital sales were not reported specifically for MLB The Show 22 on Xbox or Nintendo Switch, so that game probably sold better. All Nintendo games not reporting digital sales, so there's always the query, the mystery that we'll never know the answer to, of whether or not the top-selling Nintendo game is actually selling more than the Call of Duty game. We just don't know. The most surprising thing in this number set for me was Elden Ring. I have been dubious about the sales strength of Elden Ring. I have mentioned that, we bandy around that sales number of 12 million sales or whatever in the first 3 months or whatever on Steam. But I'm very quick to say those sales numbers do not reflect engagement. And I can absolutely guarantee you that 12 million people, or however many it was, went out and bought Elden Ring, but nowhere near 12 million people stayed on board that thing all the way through to the end. And probably significantly less. There was a lot of grassroots, jumping on bandwagon effect of Elden Ring. And a lot of people bought it because they felt they should and they needed to be seen playing it. Many screenshots on Twitter of socks on people's feet with their controller in their hand and the Elden Ring title screen splash page, never to be seen on those accounts again after those pictures were posted. But sales are sales, money is money, revenue is revenue, so good on you From Software and Bandai Namco for getting that thing out of here and making the splash that it did. Any other questions or comments about the sales data?
I think my 2 takeaways are this is the first year in recent memory where there is only one Call of Duty title. Frequently in the year-end sales, we see last year's Call of Duty still show up in the top 10. We saw that last year with Cold War show up within the same year as Vanguard, or in terms of both make it to the top 10 list. So I think that one is probably a sign of the lack of Vanguard strength. I think it will be interesting come next year, especially if the plans continue, that there's not a new formal release of Call of Duty next year, and what this looks like in terms of Modern Warfare sales. The other piece is 2 Pokemon games. Tau. I think that in some ways that's not surprising considering they came out so far apart. But I'm glad to see Legends Arceus up as high as it is, because maybe that gives Game Freak a little more leeway of trying to do something down that vein still.
Yeah, I think on the Pokemon thing too, the fact that there was so much flack on both of those games, and there's still, there's still an audience out there. Obviously, for us and a lot of people who watch these sites, you're gonna see that flag. But the majority of the people, they just want to play Pokemon. Like, it's a new Pokemon game, kind of like new Madden. I'm gonna go out, play it. So it is good, like you said, that Arceus has hit that. It has kind of gone up there with sales. Hopefully they do more of those. I mean, I don't know if they'll do anything more like Arceus, or if they'll kind of just, they seem to keep like kind of just trying to do different things, like they did Pokemon Let's Go. I would say Pokemon Let's Go, where it was kind of a totally different thing that they've ever done before. And then Arceus, and they've done some of the remasters even are a little bit different. They've up-res them and kind of rebuilt them a little bit, I guess you could say. So it's kind of nice that they're doing that. And then the other thing for just the December sales themselves, Mario Kart 8 still up there, still alive. But I guess that's, you get the new tracks too. So it's kind of nice to see those kind of.
And it's Christmas sales, right? Like you get some of that in there. Yeah,
those bundles, I think that we always see with Switch and Mario Kart. So,
and I'm not a Pokemon guy, but was Arceus this year or last year?
Yeah,
Arceus was early this year. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, 2022. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. Of the year that sales were reported, it was early January, I think.
It was January, like second or third week. I think it was pretty early.
Yeah, in the Fire Emblem Engage kind of window for 23.
And congratulations, gamers. You've done an excellent job telegraphing very firmly and very loudly to Nintendo that there is absolutely no need for a Nintendo Switch Pro. So we should all look forward to playing on our Nintendo Switch for yet another year in 2023.
Well, and also congratulations to gamers telling EA that, no, you do not have to fix the broken infrastructure of Madden that we talked about last week, because it is still in the top 3 of sales in America.
Well, on the Switch side, I didn't mention this. I forgot to mention this before, but another reason I didn't get Marvel's Midnight Suns right away is because I want to play it on the Switch. It kind of seems like a perfect game to play on the go, or like portable. So
I think if it can run, it will be fine. Yeah. I've thought of that as well. Like it would be good on the Steam Deck. There's text. So, but it works very well with a controller. Where having played XCOM on both, I prefer XCOM on PC, but I've played it on controllers as well. So this works because it's not as heavy into the strategy. It works.
Yeah.
So Tao,
yes,
you've been getting into the cloud and watching that news. So apparently there's a new cloud device on the market. Can you tell us about that a little bit, please?
Yeah, so this was on True Achievements, and it's obviously been on other news sites, but by Tom West on that site. Razer has announced a new cloud gaming handheld console, a Razer Edge, and it will be coming out January 26th of this year. This was actually reported out last week, last Sunday, the 8th. And well, as far as I didn't I need to look at it further, but it's obviously going to be playing Xbox. You can play Xbox Game Pass Ultimate games on there. I'm assuming you're gonna be able to play other um, other services. I don't think it's said in this article, and I didn't really see in any other articles. But um, so the device itself is going to have three iterations. You're going to have the Razor's Edge Wi-Fi, Razor's Edge Founders Edition, which I didn't get a chance to look up to see what was different there, and then the Razor's Edge 5G, where you can actually use it as the actual mobile device. And they've partnered with Verizon to use their ultra wideband network, so you can play on the go anywhere you're at with the Razor's Edge. So this is kind of interesting because I can't remember. Do you remember if the Logitech was able to do any kind of mobile?
No, the Logitech one is simply. I mean, it's running Android, so you could be playing Android games, but it is
Wi-Fi.
not rolling. I mean, it's not mobile. It's simply Wi-Fi and
That's
streaming. Yes. Okay. So this does look like it's running a Snapdragon. Looks like you should be able to, because of the 5G, you'd have not only the mobile option, but you'd be playing things within, I would think, either the Play Store or anything else running on that can run through an Android.
Yeah. So the device itself, Snapdragon G3X Gen 1 active cooled gaming chipset with the 3 gigahertz Cryo CPU. It's 6.8 inches, FHD, 144 megahertz, AMOLED touchscrreen display. So the device as itself is just a screen, and then you kind of snap in their Razer Kishi kind of controller, like mobile controller that they have. I have the first generation. This is the second generation of that controller. So you can just use it as a touchscreen, or you snap on the controller and you can use it that way also, which I thought was kind of interesting. That you can do that, but I guess kind of makes sense since they've been using that now for a while. That controller, but yeah, just another mobile device. I didn't end up getting the Logitech. I don't know if I'll get this. So it's pretty kind of expensive. So $399 for the Razor's Edge Wi-Fi, $499 for the Razor's Edge Founders Edition. I got to look up what that is actually. I didn't get a chance to, and then they haven't said what the 5G version is, but more than likely probably $600, if not a little bit more. But we'll have to find out in the next few months or the next few weeks, obviously, since it's coming out in 26. So so just another cloud device out there. I don't know. This one I guess kind of makes more sense because at least they have the 5G version. And that's to say, and I don't want to like poo-poo on Logitech or anything, but at least this has the 5G version, so you can you actually go out mobile. You don't have to worry about hey, I gotta head to Starbucks or some kind of place that has Wi-Fi to play this device. But the Razer Kishi controller, like I've mentioned in the past, it's actually pretty nice, really nice. I haven't any issues. It's just like you're gaming on a Switch basically when I was using that thing. So and I mentioned this also kind of confused the button layout, even though it's more of like an Xbox a button configuration. But I plenty of times even now when I pop it on there, I just my mind goes to the Switch and I mix the buttons up. So, but I mean that's just on me, So we'll have to see how that goes, and maybe eventually I'll give this device a try. Any comments on this one?
The one comment I'll make is it does come with the Google Play Store, or at least compatible with it, so you will be able to play Android games natively on device. And then as you guys mentioned, obviously we'll be able to access any other cloud services. I wasn't able to quickly find what else there is on the Founders Edition. Although it has a 5G radio in it, it is not going to come enabled by Verizon with telephony or text messaging, and you won't be able to sign up for. Apparently, you won't be able to sign up for a plan that would natively include that. You'll just be able to sign up for a data plan. You will, of course, be able to utilize apps, as I said, from the Google Play Store, so there's no reason why you couldn't install WhatsApp on it and use it as a messaging device. I don't know, I mean, you should be able to install Google Voice on it and use it as a telephony device as well, since Google Voice just uses data signals. So, interesting. Tempting, but not.
Not tempting enough is what you're saying?
No, I mean, I had a Razer. I can't remember what were their phones called.
Oh yeah, I can't remember. Yeah,
They had a first and second generation. I had the second generation. I had a Razer phone, which was great as a gaming phone, but I just didn't use it as much. I mean, I had it. I mean, that was before I would have been on Game Pass right in Xbox Cloud Gaming, but it's getting super busy for people's attention and people's time. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see this land. I know that I've argued very strongly that the younger generation of gamer coming up behind us has interest in something like this and devices like this. So it'll be interesting to see what traction it takes. And in fact, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I think it was just called the Razer phone. It looks like
it may have just been called the Razer phone. Yeah.
Yeah.
And another bit of good news for this device coming out, you should be able to use your Stadia controller along with it. Tal, you want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Yes, and right before that, the Founders Edition does come with the Razer Hammerhead True Wireless earbuds. So that's the big difference there for their other than it has everything else besides that. So yeah, so Google this past week has announced a couple things actually for their kind of powering down of their Stadia system. So the one thing is they released a free game, which is it's a Snake clone called Worm Game. So you can play that now until the service is totally shut down. But the other thing they're going to do is unlock the Stadia controller, so you can use it on. You should be able to use it on pretty much any Bluetooth compatible, like a PC. Use it on any system, Steam or whatnot. Which I've seen a lot of people like, yeah, this is it was a great controller, which it's a pretty good controller. But the one thing I didn't like about this controller was the parallel sticks. So they're not offset, which literally hurts my fingers or hurts my hands when I'm playing with that thing. So I can't really. I mean, it's nice that I'll be able to use it on something else, like if one of my controllers breaks. But I got a lot of them, so I mean, if they all break, it's going to be bad luck for me. And I can use Stadia, so that's pretty nice. But another thing, though, too, now that I think about it, is recently Xbox has updated their list of TVs that you can use their Xbox Game Pass on. And my TV was a Samsung, like a year or two. So it would have been about like a 21. I think it was a 21 version of their TV, and it just got the Xbox Game Pass app, so I can use it on there. I haven't really tested it out yet. It's one thing I got to do at some point. But it's possible I can just use that controller on there. So I have to bring my controllers all over the house and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool. That's kind of nice that they're doing that. I guess that was like the one request that everybody was kind of getting from them or wanting them to do was unlock the controller, which I find it kind of interesting that that they did that in the first place, because most other controllers kind of already unlocked and you can just do things, take them anywhere you want, use them on other PCs or whatnot. But I guess they kind of locked this one down, and now it's free. It's free forever. Well, it will be free. There's like a download tool you have to download, and it's sometime next week. They haven't said exactly when to download that, and you'll just have to update the controller, I'm assuming, with that file, with that software.
When I was younger, there was a Monday Night Football game, possibly arguably one of the greatest games in the history of Monday Night Football, where in the final 2 minutes of the game, the great Joe Montana and John Elway each marched down the field, I want to say a total of 5 times, to score touchdowns for their team. And lots of my friends went to bed thinking the game was over, thinking the Broncos had it in the bag. And they were surprised and disappointed to find out the next morning that those of us who had stayed up saw one of the greatest football games ever. And so for those Stadia owners who said, screw this, and got rid of their controllers, that's disappointing. And I agree with you, Tal. I also am not as much a fan of the parallel analog sticks as I am of Microsoft's offset design. I've talked about that recently. But I will say, despite that, the Stadia controller I still find, other than the DualSense, to be much better than any PlayStation controller that I've ever had. And it's definitely, when I've talked about, getting back into mobile gaming this year and, going on travel and just wanting to take a tablet and chuck a controller in a bag. the Stadia controller definitely fits that use case. So it should be nice. Mine's still over there in the drawer, so I guess it's time to get it charged back up. Next news story in the rundown. DBQ, any comments? Next story in the rundown, this story over on VG247 by Stephanie Nunley Jackson. Bethesda and Xbox to host Developer Direct presentation on January 25th. And I quote, Starfield may be getting its own showcase, but Xbox and Bethesda aren't leaving other titles out of the spotlight. As previously rumored and now confirmed, Bethesda and Xbox will host a Developer Direct presentation on January 25th. This showcase will feature updates on The Elder Scrolls Online, Forza Motorsport, Minecraft Legends, and Redfall. Now, some people are going to dislike what I'm about to say. Those people might include my two co-hosts who are here with me, but I'm going to say them. Reports on The Elder Scrolls Online and Minecraft Legends, in my opinion, don't move the needle in terms of Microsoft PR. So I'm not quite certain why. But talking about Forza Motorsport and Redfall, it's probably a good move. Hopefully Redfall will have a good amount to show. Forza Motorsport is always welcome. You can show that thing off, every other week until it lands. One of the things I've also mentioned recently is there's been some discussion about, what it's the beginning of the year. It's what websites do, what various console manufacturers need to do for 2023. And there's been thoughts that, Microsoft is doing this because they got a bunch of flack for not showing anything at the Game Awards. I don't know. I don't think that's true, since if there's a showcase happening on January 25th, it was obviously been in works for 2 or 3 months with Phil, reviewing the slate of what people are doing. What I like most about the show, it's his Developer Direct. And I love the branding of it because it's deliberate and intentional, and they're trying to telegraph what this is. A slight warning that other gamers may find this show boring, because it's going to feature the types of things that I've commented I like, which is it's going to have developers, it's going to have them talking about their games, it's going to have them talking about the process and design choices that they made, and yada, 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 yada. And people tend not to like a talking heads presentation without a sizzle reel, and a bunch of software developers talking about how they make their games. But that's what this is going to be because it's called a Developer Direct. So I'm super excited about this and seeing this and hearing about how the sausage is made, so to speak. And it's nice, where it's located in the calendar, in that there's room, in my opinion, for something like this to breathe, because it doesn't have the PR pressure of getting into the March timeframe when people are going to need, if you're going to do something, then people do need to see a sizzle reel because you need to grab their attention away from, the next, Zelda game, right? And the other things that are coming out in March. Redfall coming out so Zelda coming out in May, Redfall coming out in, I guess they don't have dates, and that will be another good thing here, that hopefully we'll hear a firm date for Redfall. DBQ, any comments?
No, I think it seems logical to give it dates. I also think it, timing-wise, is less about the Game Awards and more about the end of the fiscal year in terms of kind of setting projections as they head into the final quarter, or they're in the final quarter of the fiscal year. So, yeah, I don't know that. I think it's a slow, maybe it's a window of time where there's not a lot of other news coming out. So it gives them a window here. Because I agree with you. Like, I don't know that there's a whole lot to fill this slot with, but it seems it's a good chance for them to get some stuff out they normally haven't.
I'm actually hoping this is a pivot. I'm hoping that Developer Directs become just part of the norm, and we get away from the I think ridiculous expectations that are sometimes extrapolated for what was, I don't even remember what they were calling the Xbox things.
Oh, yeah, the different showcases that they were doing or whatever. Yep.
Yeah, maybe it was called, it's Nintendo Direct, PlayStation State of Play, and showcases, and I forget what the Xbox branding was around theirs, but I think the industry needs this. I think, in my personal opinion, I think gamers should have this, because I think things get presented that people need to understand, right? And people need to be given exposure to, and people need to hear more so than just the sizzle reels. But Tao, any comments?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you on the Minecraft side, just because it's not the mainline Minecraft. It is a new game, though, at least. Like, it's kind of interesting, kind of strategy game. A little bit I've seen of it here and there, kind of real time-ish strategy games. So that I'm interested in that just because one, I like real time strategy games, and I like obviously Minecraft. So I'd be interested to see how they put these two together. But yeah, that's probably not like like you said, a big needle mover. Yes, ESO though, Elder Scrolls Online. I think there's a pretty decent community out there for that. So I think a lot of people would be looking to see what their next big thing is coming up for that game. So I mean, yeah, it's not Elder Scrolls, it's not Elder Scrolls 6, but I think a lot of people will be excited on that end for what's coming up on there. And um, I my prediction will be that a lot of people will complain because it's not, like you said, it is a developer driven direct. So it's not. Yeah, they'll probably show gameplay, but they're probably going to show like a little snippet of gameplay, maybe just over and over, just kind of going over what they're doing and what this, and how people are. So the internet age. So, but I'll probably watch it after the fact just because it's probably during, I don't know what the 25th is. I'm assuming that's during the week. So I'll probably watch it after the fact just to see. Like I said, I'm interested in Minecraft Legends, Forza. I'm not really a big mainline Forza Motorsports fan, so I'll probably just watch it. Fast forward to that. Just look at the pretty cars. I'm that guy. I'm sorry, but that's how I feel about that. Yeah, and in Redfall, I'm actually pretty excited for it. I was actually a lot more excited for that after the little bit of what they showed last year during E3-ish time period. So I'll be interested to see more on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there'll actually be a healthy amount of gameplay. There should be for Redfall to kind of clear up a lot of the questions and conceptions. It's gotten like 3 different kind of sets of messaging around it, whether it was a Borderlands-like game, a Left 4 Dead-like game, or now it's, what was the latest thing that they said? It was more like...
I forgot. Yeah, there's another game that they're talking about.
Yeah, there's a third metaphor analogy that they're comparing to. So there should be... Yeah, so there should be a healthy amount of it. And I know ESOL has a healthy community around it. My feeling is I don't care. It's not that I don't care. It's that I don't. I'm saying
you don't care because it's not for you.
No, I'm saying
you can say that.
No. But I'm saying I don't think it moves the needle from a marketing PR perspective for Microsoft, the corporation, in terms of what they need to establish themselves as this year. DBQ. We talked about sales in a positive light earlier, but now you have not so positive a take on some sales information.
Just a quick hit here on Ubisoft that they announced that they are due to some underperformance this year. They specifically named Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope and Just Dance, that what they had projected as a forecast of 10% growth, they are now in 10% decline. So a decrease of 10% from the year over year. So from fiscal 22, they canceled a few unannounced games, which isn't really surprising. I mean, in some ways, it probably happens all the time. We don't always get the news about it, but they also did delay the Skull and Bones, the ship combat game again. And I think the other piece here is it was a rough year for Ubisoft. They did not have a lot of big titles coming out. They had a lot of live service kind of season pass add-on content pieces that were more in-game transaction based. I don't know that there were, other than Far Cry 6, which came out earlier in the year. You had Rainbow Six Extraction, but that was last fiscal year. So yes, it was a thin calendar of releases, and so it does not seem that surprising that they would have to adjust their numbers.
Yeah, I think they delivered more content for the Division 2 this year, which was kind of a makeup kiss from like the months of delivering nothing that they claim, in comparison to what they claim they would do. And Ubisoft, the corporation, cannot survive on The Crew 2 alone. So, last story to close out the news rundown. God of War. Go ahead, Tom.
Let me just say. All right. So is there a reason, like, when they do announce, like, and not just Ubisoft, but any company, when they announce something like that, where they say, "Hey, we've killed off 2 or 3 or whatever the number is, unannounced project. Is there a reason like that you even do that? Like, why not just kind of just go on without even saying anything and just
I
all
think
the other news?
I think because it gives foundational information behind revised guidance, right? Because those games that are canceled are games that are canceled after level of effort has been applied, right? And so it's taken up developer cycles, right? Human capital investment. I mean, people burn time on those and burn capital resources, i.e. cash, right? Trying to make a game go. And so I think it's just to give, it's to inform investors that they didn't just, toss money out the window, but they were actually trying to, make good on something. So, and it also shapes up expectations for the coming year, right? If games were in pipeline and they were canceled, that means there's a certain amount of kind of resetting of the production pipeline, and don't be looking at me looking for 8, 9, 10 games, right? Because people were working on 3 of those games, and it takes 5 years to make one, and those 3, now aren't coming out.
Yeah, I think it's definitely investor telegraphing more than anything else, for the 2 reasons that Hamp said.
And we still haven't heard anything for X Defiant. That's still there. Site's still there. Still says it's being developed. It's their like free-to-play arena shooter game.
I think you and the 3 other people have kept those SEO searches going for it. So congratulations.
I search every time it comes up in this podcast. Every like 2 or 3 years, or 2 or 3 times a year, I should say.
And I think part of the tail of that tape is I think they shut down. The Hyperscape shutdown was this year as well, right?
Yeah. Well, there's another one too. Didn't they announce on a game last year that they had shut down in that same year? I can't remember what it was though. Now it was some kind of shooter. I don't know if it was like Battle Arena or Battle Royale or something. I can't remember.
Yeah, there was some other thing they had, and then is the roller derby thing still going on?
That's still going. Yep. You can get in-game content for it, but yeah, that again. I think they've got a tough business model here in terms of they flooded the market with the market of where they went is flooded, and trying to carve out a sustaining spot that they are used to with big AAA title boxed releases is a challenging adjustment for a game developer, a publicly traded game developer.
To do my best impression of Apollo Creed's trainer from Rocky IV, throw the damn towel! Throw the towel! Ubisoft's got some. I mean, we've talked a lot about companies that have lost their way, and the report out on what Ubisoft experienced for a fiscal year for 2022. I'm like, what did they have to sell other than Assassin's Creed Valhalla DLC? So. Last story of the night over on Destructoid by Eric Van Allen. God of War Ragnarok rakes in nominations for the 26 DICE Awards. Of all the things that we've talked about, my personal feeling is this is one of the most important. Lots of wailing and gnashing of teeth about the Game Awards and people's dissatisfaction with them, and quite frankly, just people not getting it, right? One of the things, and I do this every single year, one of the things that people should realize about the DICE Award, 30,000 something members of the Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences, AIAS. Those are all industry professionals. It is not media. It is not journalists. It is not other gamers. It is not podcasters. It's the people who actually make video games. And so if there is a game award show for you to pay attention to the DICE Awards. Stop worrying about the TGAs. Stop getting wrapped around the axle and doing all the whining and complaining and belly aching about your game didn't make it into whatever categories. Why don't racing games ever win Game of the Year? Blah, blah, blah. That's because it's media and it's journalists and it's PR and there's a thing. And that show is designed to sell games prior to Christmas, right? For the last vestiges, last waves of games. The DICE Awards are about how the the creative professionals who make games feel about the design of games and the art of games that their peers are doing. And if you want to understand where to expect those creatives to go with their own games, pay attention to the games that they award. So those nominees were announced this past week. Those shows will also be aired, which is also a thing that I think a lot of people don't realize. They'll be aired on IGN and I think over YouTube. They're hosted by Greg Miller and Stella. I can't remember what her last name is, but she's the She's the person on IGN who does the IGN 5, whatever their 5-minute
Stella
sizzle thing
Chung.
is. Yeah. Very quickly, the nominees this year: Outstanding Achievement in Animation, Cuphead, Elden Ring, God of War, Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, and Moss Book 2. Achievement in Art Direction, Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 2, God of War, Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Stray, The Callisto Protocol. Stray getting a lot of recognition in these awards, and people should look at that and recognize that. A lot of Stray's not a great game, Stray didn't, blah, blah, blah. Again, industry professionals recognizing the creative work and effort and art on Stray and direction on Stray, just something to pay attention to realize how they feel about the game. Lots of people.
Quick question.
Yeah,
quick
yeah.
question.
Yep.
Move on to the next one. Modern Warfare 2. What's like? How did that get out there?
So I was just about to say a lot of another thing that not saying you are Tal, but another thing that people sleep on with Call of Duty. Finish playing through a Call of Duty single player campaign and watch the credits roll. And look at the nearly thousands of people that are employed, and the dozens of people that are employed in things like the art department, the audio department, the orchestration of Call of Duty is quite frankly amazing, right, in its scale. And so the same types of creative effort that go into something as a God of War, Ragnarok, and an Elden Ring, those things are done at a departmental level and at scale on Call of Duty. The degree of care, the degree of attention to detail, the things that people do with weapons and audio to try and get that right in the game. And Call of Duty has been recognized, almost gets recognized every single year for its art direction. And the things that they do, not art direction, sound audio direction. And so, art direction has to do a lot with some of the backdrops and canvas setting of things in the single player campaign. They have a lot to do with their water technology that was implemented in this game. When it comes to audio, it has a lot to do with what they have done with weapons. So these are things we don't pay attention to because Call of Duty is largely multiplayer. And what do we do as multiplayers? We immediately go in and turn all those things off so we get the most frames per second so that we can get our KDAs up. But if you look at it and really dig into the details of it, it's a ton of detailed work that's going on in that series. And the army of people behind it is as big as, any Final Fantasy game or other games of that creative ilk. Achievement in character, Modern Warfare 2, Ragnarok gets nods for Atreus and Kratos. And again, these are nominations. Horizon Forbidden West, another title that people felt was snubbed in the TGA, is getting a lot of attention from other creative professionals in the DICE Awards. And Return to Monkey Island, Guybrush Threepwood. Musical composition, A Plague Tale, God of War, Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Metal Hellsinger, and Moss Book 2. Achievement in audio design, A Plague Tale, Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, God of War, Ragnarok, Gotham Knights, and Somerville. Again, creative professionals don't snub a game just because other things about the game were maybe bad or not appreciated. So Gotham Knights getting a nod here for audio design. Achievement in story, Elden Ring, God of War, Ragnarok, I Was a Teenage Exocolonist, Immortality in Norco, technical achievement, Plague Tale, Elden Ring, Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Teardown, Action Game of the Year, Bayonetta, Grounded, Neon. Look, you could read it. I think...
I was going to say, are you going to go through this whole list?
No, I wasn't. I was trying to hit the top.
Jump down to the bottom. Jump down to the bottom because I think you get the Game of the Year.
Yeah, I didn't realize the list was that long either. Game of the Year: Elden Ring, God of War, Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Stray, making it into this category, and Vampire Survivors. Vampire Survivors got a lot of attention. I don't know if it got a lot of attention for the right reasons or the reasons why it's in this category. So, again, something to pay attention to. I do apologize. Honestly, I didn't remember that it was that many categories. I thought it was much shorter list.
I think it is well worth it going to look at, like you said at the beginning, going to look at what's nominated because you get all the different categories. You get VR, you get independent games. But even looking at this list of the Game of the Years, having things like Stray and Vampire Survivors on this list, other than the three that would be expected, it is also speaks to the development side of what DICE does.
Very true, very true. Gentlemen, we are short on time, so let's do our own sizzle reel here to wrap up segment 3 as we move on to the last phase. Regular, rundown, and round robin. Our gamer experience cleanup. Tao, high notes on Marvel Snap?
Yeah, just running through Marvel Snap again. I played a lot this week, but that was one of the games I've been able to play pretty much every day. And new season with Savage Land. So you get some Khazar variants, and then you got Zabu, his pet saber-tooth tiger, as their season card that you get for this season, or this was it the fourth season, I think.
Since the October release,
Yeah.
in beta, there's been multiple seasons already.
Oh, okay. So yeah, just rolling through that. I got up to in the mid 30s ish on the not the season pass. The there's so many different
Yeah, in the like the battle rank.
Yeah, the battle rank, yeah. So I'm probably gonna plateau again once at 40 because that's what I did last few seasons. So I realize now that I have a lot of cards now. I have to go back and start, rebuilding decks and getting rid of decks. 'Cause I have I think I got like 13 decks now. I just actually built a new deck around the one area that's popping up now, which is Savage Land, I believe. It throws out a couple of dinosaur cards at you. So yeah, I just there's a lot of cards. Now I'm getting to that point where there's a lot of cards now, and I really got to pay attention to what I have. So I'm getting new cards pretty much every time I go up my my collection rank. So, and I also didn't realize you get variants now too, because I've gotten a few variants now through the collection rank. So I thought it was just all new cards through those, but I'm getting those now. But yep, they're still enjoying the game.
So quick question I want to stop. As I've been listening to other podcasters and people talk about this, my understanding is that one of the things they're rolling out here soon is PvP.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, it's good time to clean up your decks because before the end of the month, they announced that there will be another update with PvP coming.
So here's what I don't understand. If PvP is just rolling out, who have you guys been playing? Because I thought you guys were playing other people the whole time.
No, not so friend PvP, right? The ability to have match made, or not match made, right? We've been playing randoms in PvP.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. That makes way more sense. DBQ, high notes on Shredder's Revenge.
If you have Netflix, Shredder's Revenge is now available through Netflix mobile on your phones, and it works great. It runs really well. It just was playing it. You can play up to 4. You can probably even more because you can play up to 6 players, but played up to 3 players and mobile connected over Wi-Fi or over mobile data, and you get a room code just like almost like a Jackbox game. So it works really smooth. Not a whole lot of latency within the multiplayer combat. So a lot of fun if you're already a Netflix subscriber.
My other game this week has on Netflix. I'm not sure what tipped Netflix off, but I don't know whether they knew I was a gamer or it was because of what device I was on. But now, like, you get prompted, like it asks you the next time you log in, like, hey, do you want to play games on Netflix? So my other game that I've been playing this week was Destiny 2, Season 19, Season of the Seraph. Yes, I went back. One of the main reasons I did, and we're not going to talk too much about the game, I'm going to really quick try and get through not a whole spiel, but a little bit about hardware. The main reason I was playing this, as well as Halo Infinite, is because they are intense games. They drive CPU utilization a little bit more than a lot of other games do. And I had a GPU fail this week, which I still need to put in for warranty. But more impactful than that was as I was troubleshooting the failed GPU, trying to figure out exactly whether I had a power supply problem, a GPU problem, or a heat problem. I also became aware that there was a heat problem in the PC that I am on now, which is so whisper quiet that you can't hear it in background noise now because I ripped out the cooling system, discovered the horrible thermal paste application that Cyber PC did before they shipped this to me last year, replaced the cooling system, including the heatsink and fan with an all-in-one cooler from Arctic, and replaced the fans that I had in there from CyberPower PC because the RGBs were failing. And there was a really low quality, low grade power supply that was in there as well. So I replaced the power supply also. So I replaced all that, rebuilt the PC, and because the initial failure was happening while I was playing Destiny 2, which I realized was also showing me the same systems as failures that I'd seen in Halo Infinite the weekend before. So built this PC back up and then utilized Destiny 2 and Halo Infinite as my primary test applications as well. It is running beautifully now. It is 19 times the PC that CyberPower PC sent me. which I only bought from them because of the last throes and vestiges of the supply constraints of the pandemic. And now, hopefully, we will never see that again, and as well, I will never be forced to take action such as I did again and ever buy a PC, because for whatever reason, the ones that I build are much, much, much better than anything I've ever bought from anyone. So DBQ, you have been playing another game that is of similar ilk to Destiny 2 and Halo Infinite that I was thinking about using for test. My one note on Destiny 2, neat little campaign to open up Season 19 about Bray, and both of the Brays, all three of the Brays, actually, if you're familiar with the Destiny 2 lore. And you spent a little time with Osiris as well, so it's a very cool opening. DBQ, you've been playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, which we've talked about extensively tonight.
Yeah, I don't know that I have a whole lot to say, except I'm impressed with the menus. Like, compared to the last few years of how they've kind of continued to graph things on, I think it's a much cleaner implementation this year. So I'm sure we'll talk about more Modern Warfare at some point in time as we go on and you cycle in and out of it. But yes.
Yeah, well, we will have to talk about that because I have starkly the opposite opinion of you on the menus, but that may be because of a certain perspective, but we will definitely dig into that. You're playing on PlayStation 5, by the way, on mouse and keyboard, or with control, with the dual
controller.
Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha. And Tao, high notes on Dragon Ball FighterZ.
Yeah, so just jump back into Dragon Ball FighterZ. Just, once again, kind of looking at easy games I can kind of play right now. Jumped them back down to Dragon Ball FighterZ, which is the kind of 2D fighting game, kind of Marvel versus Capcom, where you can like knock people in the air super high and jump up and do crazy combos and stuff like that. So just going through the story still. I don't know if the game was like is this easy as it was before, or if I changed something that I don't realize, because it seems pretty easy when I'm doing these fights. Like there's kind of like an overworld map where you kind of just move your little icon of whoever your main character that you have in your group into each point, and then you just do a fight there. But I'm just kind of like rolling over people right now, so I gotta check the settings. And not that I mind if it's a little easy, but it's a little bit too easy. And I usually like to play games on normal, so I don't know what's going on, or if this was just an easy game in the first place. But I'll have to go back and check that. But yeah, just having fun going back, kind of that, like I said, that Marvel versus Capcom style game, which I always enjoyed, and I'm having a lot of fun with that.
Okay, very cool. So next episode will be hosted by Tao, Master99. Hopefully next episode we'll have less news. We had quite a bit of news to get through this week with earnings calls and NPD reports, sales reports, and everything coming back. So hopefully next week will be lighter. I apologize about having to compress everyone's gameplay talk time. That is going to do it for us. For anybody who happened to swing by and view and listen in on the live stream, we appreciate you. For anybody who happens to watch this archive of this video on the replay, we appreciate you as well. Please feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you can just receive a notification whenever we post new content. As we mentioned, we'll be back next week doing the same thing with TowMaster99 hosting. Until next time, good night, good luck, and good gaming. That's going to do it for us. We're out of here.